Oh, hey man, you guys want to talk about music or something? Like, I might need some Doritos, but, oh, you want to talk about it now? Okay, well, let's do that. I know some stuff about music. It's cool. There's this album, actually, Ultraviolet by Kylesa, that we should really talk about right now, man. Yeah, because it's really making some waves. It's really doing some stuff, man. You should definitely check it out and smoke it up while you're listening. That was a recommendation given to me, at least, and I didn't take that recommendation principally because I have other, means of achieving a higher state of mind. Not to mention, I needed to analyze this album. That way I could actually review it. And I can't do that while token up without getting so philosophical that it's insane. So, let's talk about this album. This album has been making a lot of has gotten some attention in the past couple of weeks, and it's certainly one that warrants it. This band was a very hot commodity a couple of years ago. Spiral Shadows, their last album, was on the end-of-year lists for a lot of different publications, and now they move on to Ultraviolet, and they kind of do things a little bit differently with this album. They have decided to kind of expand their horizons a little bit. For one, the band themselves is becoming a lot more of really a multifaceted bunch, where each individual member is able to play 2 or more instruments and really contribute in different ways on this album. Secondly, the female vocals are making not just a return, but a more prevalent return, where this is actually the vocals that you hear more often than not on this album. The male vocals are also present, however, they're present in a little bit lesser of a format. So it may sound a little bit different at first to a lot of people, but the real difference, the real thing that's actually going to perhaps blow some people's minds, open people's eyes, and perhaps expand their horizons is whenever they listen to this music, whenever they listen to what was recorded. Ultraviolet, whenever you look at the cover first off, you notice the scarab beetle on it, and it's funny because the band themselves say that the scarab beetle's inclusion on the cover is extremely poignant, considering they took a little ball of shit and turned it into something amazing. And it's kind of funny too, because this is a sludge metal band. Whenever you associate sludge, you associate it with muck. Muck sometimes can be another word that can be used for shit, so it all comes full circle. I'm already going philosophical. However, this is a fairly good allegory, considering at the same time, they didn't go in with a real set plan. They really didn't go in with a set attack on how to approach this album. Instead, they opted for each individual member to really bring their own ideas to the fold with whatever instrument that they wanted, which also includes the theremin, which is really cool. For those of you who haven't seen The Big Bang Theory, you're probably confused right now, or Star Trek, but this is certainly something that has played a large role in this album, where you hear just a wide breadth of musical creativity. And also, another thing that is expanded upon here is in the more psychedelic dreamscape ability of this band, which is something that's been present with them since day one, although they were a little bit more of a sludge/crust punk in the earliest get-goes, or one could even say, not even. However, this is one where that expansiveness and that real dreamy idea, that psychedelic idea, really tends to take the cake. Now, I'm going to make a really bold statement here, and that's the fact that I think that with this album, Kylesa has kind of treaded some waters that have been treaded only a few times before. Kind of a very, very narrow, shallow pathway that could be dubbed as dream sludge. Yeah, dream sludge. Whenever I think of this, I think of their traditional sounds. I think of the traditional sounds of sludge bands. I consider psychedelic rock, so already I'm getting images of barrenness, considering that's kind of the evolution of their sound. But then I also go into the realm of dream pop with a band such as Beach House, which is something that, strangely enough, I get shades of whenever I listen to this release. And I get dream sludge, this unique idea that could potentially be a subgenre as early as tomorrow. But it won't be. This is something that's going to be, this would be the trailblazing album if it were to ever happen, but I think the likelihood is pretty slim. But that's exactly what I feel whenever I listen to this release. I feel a lot of dreaminess with this, within the mire, within the sludge, within the muck. And the best way that I can describe this album is as thus. I know I mentioned Beach House, but I'm going to mention beaches again. Imagine yourself, you're walking down a beach. The waves are cascading to your left, and to your right there's a stiff breeze in the air with seagulls cawing and, singing their clarion song. And of course there is sand. There is nobody else on this beach. You are the lone person on this beach when all of a sudden, in a flash of orange and red and other colors that you perhaps have never seen before, an ultraviolet light, Armageddon occurs. Whether it be through nuclear weapons, whether it be through just a cataclysmic event that is otherworldly, the cataclysm of Armageddon occurs. Throughout this album, you experience that Armageddon. You experience that dark emotional turmoil. But every so often throughout this affair, every so often, you see beauty in it. So instead of seeing the destruction of the nuclear bomb, perhaps, if we are going with this analogy, you are instead examining the beauty of the smoke rising upward from the mushroom cloud. Instead of picturing only devastation and destruction, death, dismay, tears, agony, liquidation. Instead you see this as calm, as serenity, as a kind of strange peace that you yourself have been, well, thankful enough to experience. And at a moment seems to make you one with yourself, while at the same time lamenting for all. It's a very, very strange feeling, and this as an album is really able to provide and paint that picture quite nicely. There are moments on this album where the dreamier elements just really overshadow a lot of the other things that are going on, and I know that my voice is just going to hell on me right now, so the allegory of good to bad really seems to be working even on my voice. But the dreamier elements really just are something that's so picture perfect. It's something that really elevates this album to a brand new plateau. It's bold ground, but at the same time it's not necessarily untread grounds for this band, so it should come as little surprise. However, the expansiveness of these dreamier elements may be what comes as a complete shock. I mean, this is something where the band is able to combine the elements of sludge. They're able to combine the, visceral, tempo and pace of punk at some periods of time. Really, and it's also something that takes part in some of just the ravishing vocals. And the vocals also are a part of this calming process also. I mean, it's not all going to be ethereal. It's not all going to be blissful. The vocals still sound like they're very, strained. They're very impassioned. They have a lot of angst behind them, but that angst is out of a little bit more of fear or depression or recklessness, as opposed to just being angst for the sake of angst, for the sake of being just wild, obnoxious, out of control. It's all something that has a purpose. Being high whenever listening to this album almost sounds like being high through while listening to anything from Neurosis, especially in their early days. I remember reviewing Through Silver and Blood by Neurosis back in the day and being high during that process, and that became downright scary. It really was the soundtrack to Armageddon. That was the best way that I could put it. And whenever I did the video during the Metal Triptych 1,012 years ago, I hope I was able to really pinpoint that accurately, as opposed to really just, over-dramatizing it. There was a little bit of drama in there, don't get me wrong, but also it's one of those albums that really does paint the picture of, a universal death in your mind. This album doesn't do that. Because like I said, even though Armageddon may occur at certain moments during this release, it is something still where it seems that the serenity, the calmer points, the beauty of everything examined seems to be the real thing that is pinpointed by your senses. And this album musically is able to sonically reconstruct that, and it does so very well. I really enjoyed this release. I really enjoyed this experience. It's one that I've already relived a couple of different times, and I have not shifted or wavered my opinion on that. It has always given me that comfort in chaos, that sometimes is such a delicate balance that is so atypical. It's so impossible to achieve. But this band found a way to do it with Ultraviolet. 9 out of 10. Very, very great release. Highly recommend this for everybody. Find this if it kills you. And then be killed by the Armageddon pictured in your mind. And examine life from a new mind's eye. Terrific release. Check it out, man.